me? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Norton Sports Health Training Program Tuesday Talk. Some of you may have experienced these Tuesday Talks last year during all of our virtual training, and we are excited to carry them over to this year as well, in addition to our in-person group runs. So I'm Stephanie Fish with Norton Sports Health, and I am your training program coordinator as well as your Tuesday Talk host. We have put together a comprehensive training regimen to keep you on track while you're running the mini or the marathon. But today we wanted to talk about a very special topic that I think a lot of people should pay attention to, which is nutrition and hydration while in training, during race week, and also race day. And we might even get a chance to talk about maybe what to eat even after the race or the couple of days after. So a lot of questions today, I'm sure. We hope to provide you with all the information. I do want to just, you know what, I'm going to stop sharing my screen while I'm talking. That would help. I do want to do a couple housekeeping things here. So everyone is muted and no one is on camera. So don't freak out right now. You're just watching the webinar. If you have any questions or comments throughout it, please use the Q&A feature, which is on the bottom of your screen. The chat feature is more if you want to correspond with other people in the group, but the Q&A would be a great spot to put in questions as we go through our program. I'll be monitoring those and we will do our absolute best to get to everyone's questions at the end of the presentation. So don't hesitate to put them in there. No question is a stupid question. And again, you might have noticed we are recording this, so that way we can post it later in the Facebook group for everyone to see that maybe didn't get a chance to see it today. So with all of that being said, let's kick the Tuesday Talk off, our first one this year, with our special guest, sports nutritionist, Chris Boyd. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Chris.
Hello, everybody.
So before we get started, just kind of tell us a little bit about like your background and your experience in the nutrition, dietitian, hydration world.
Sure. So I've been a registered dietitian now for almost 20 years and have done everything from gestational diabetes, so a female that gets diabetes just during pregnancy, all the way to end of life and palliative care. So I've literally ran the gamut before and at end of life. And lately in the past, really about 5 years, I've started to really focus on more of sports nutrition. I'm also a certified personal trainer. And so those two spheres kind of meld together, especially when I am training somebody. Obviously, the nutrition aspect comes in with the training aspect. And so that kind of gets melded together. I've been racing since 1999. That was when I did my first marathon, and have subsequently started to go more into longer distances and obviously delve into it with friends and family as well in regards to their training for races as well. That's kind of my background in general.
And let's us not forget that Chris's wife, Stephanie Boyd, is a race ambassador for the KDF Mini Marathon. So if you guys see her out at the group runs, make sure you say hi and say how awesome Chris did today. So, well, I know you have a little bit of a presentation for us, so that might stimulate some questions for people. Again, guys, use the Q&A feature there. I have some questions that I've pulled from people that have just asked me, so I'll have those, but use that Q&A, throw some questions out there. We'll get to them. But Chris, why don't you go ahead and share your screen so we can see your little presentation there.
Sure. First of all, let me go ahead and apologize. My office is next to a loading dock. So if you hear a bunch of noises in the background, my apologies, but not much I can do about that. So I will also say I kept this presentation very generic. And I did that on purpose because I know there's going to be a lot of questions. You know, we had the packet pickup last Thursday, and I had a lot of questions, and it's obviously everybody's experience and nutrition needs and and their food pattern is so different. It's very hard for me to really target. So I kept it very broad in knowing that we're going to get a lot of the Q&A. And so please make sure you ask those questions. I'm sure some of them are going to be a repeat, and that's perfectly fine. So go ahead and get started. And since there we go. So let's talk about just food in general. And I get this question a lot, and we're going to be talking about it in a different standpoint. So the first thing I always start, even when I've done lectures, is I always say, what's the number one definition of food in the Merriam dictionary, or diet, I mean. And everybody is like, oh, it's what you eat to lose weight, or it's how many calories you don't eat to lose weight, and that's wrong. The number one definition is anything that a human or an animal eats on a consistent basis. And so again, diet now has a negative connotation. So again, we don't want to talk about diet in a negative connotation. So we're going to talk about food and actually what it does in your body. So again, first, food is actually measured as a unit of energy to raise temperature of water by 1 degree Celsius. So that's actually why you always see a CKAL, because it's actually a measure of energy kilocalorie. So when we look at it like that, and we start looking at food not as just pleasure, but obviously what it is utilized within your body, we can start to look at it a different way. Second of all, again, when we look at it from an energy standpoint, without food or energy combined with hydration, our body would not be able to maintain homeostasis. And again, homeostasis is just an optimal balance needed for your body to function effectively. So that's even more important when you're talking about training for a race. And so again, over and or under consumption of food and hydration will negatively impact your gains made during training. So again, we don't want to do the 1 step forward, 2 steps back situation that we see sometimes in individuals that think they're doing good, but actually are harming their results. And so that's one of the things we definitely want to make sure that that you hone in on. So then the question is always, how much energy do I need? And the answer is that really depends on your specific situation. And so I know we'll be getting a lot of Q&A about that. And so I'll keep this very generic. So, well, how to know the amount of calories to consume daily while training? Well, obviously, number one is go see a registered dietitian. And obviously that individual will be able to help calculate that depending on a lot of things, your body composition. So again, your height, your weight, comorbidities, any type of medical diagnosis you have, as well as activity level and other factors that might be included. If going to an RD is not an option, think about your current body composition along with your current calories that you're consuming. And when I talk about that is some of this is really common sense. You know that if you're drinking 12 regular sodas a day, that obviously is not something that's going to be optimal for you to train at your best. Same thing as if you know that you're exaggerating 3 plates of food every single night for dinner, you know that that's probably not optimal for your training. So again, some of this is going to be kind of common sense things. And again, the one thing I always want to stress is less is not always more, and more can make you do less. And what I mean by that is restricting your calories doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose weight. It can actually have a negative effect and cause your body to actually retain weight. And again, eating so much more because, oh, well, I'm training now, so my body needs 1,000 more calories a day can actually obviously do a lot of damage as well and not be optimal for your training. So again, we really have to talk about and really try to fine tune what's going on for your personal situation. So then everybody's just give me a number. Tell me how much to eat. What should I eat? How much? And we'll just go from there. Well, again, because everybody's situation is different. If you don't have a dietitian at your disposal, the one thing I would recommend is to download an app to track your current calories. And there are a multitude of different apps out there that you can type in what you're eating, how much, and it'll tell you how many calories that you've had. And again, do that for 10 days straight and then really evaluate where it is for your goals. And what I mean by that is if it comes out and says that you're eating 3,500 calories a day, the average adult needs approximately around 2,000 calories a day. Well, if you're at 3,500 and you're not training for a 3,500 calorie day, then you're obviously getting too much calories. An exact same opposite. There's also a lot of individuals that think they're eating close to 2,000 and then comes to find out that they're only eating 1,400 calories a day. The one thing about these apps is the same thing about your training, is you have to be accurate in order for it to help you. In other words, to think that you're going to go out there and train and walk a half a mile every single day, but think you're going to run the entire race, it's probably not going to be accurate. Just like if you don't put in exactly what you're eating, all the little snacks, all the little drinks that you have during the day, then it's not going to be accurate either. So again, you have to be honest with yourself. So what and when to eat? So here's a question that I got a lot last Thursday, and I want to kind of hit upon this right now, is there is no set way to fuel. Whether you're pescatarian, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, whether you're doing keto, I got asked all those questions. There's no right way to fuel. You need to experiment with that. And what I mean by experiment is not only with your overall eating plan on a daily basis, but also before, during, and after runs. And this question was a lot. Well, what do you eat before you run, Chris? Or what kind of snacks do you take during your run? And I kind of use always myself as the example or what not to do. I'm definitely, I've been doing this, again, over 20 years. So my ability to, and how I do things is obviously different than somebody that is doing this for the first time. Is you need to experiment yourself. And Stephanie Fish, kind of knocked on brought up my wife, and we're solar opposites. I've literally seen her eat a meatloaf sandwich and go run 6 miles. If I did that, I would not even make it a mile and I'd have to stop. So again, everybody is different in how they function before, during, and after a run. You need to experiment, and you need to experiment early in your training. And what I mean by that is a lot of people usually around 90 minutes before they have a run, they'll have a snack. Some people don't need a snack whatsoever. Some people need a whole meal before they go run. So you really need to start experiment with that. And as you get into longer runs, really around the 45-minute period of a run and longer, that's when you really need to start looking at your supplementation too. Not only food, but also hydration. And again, that's something that you're really going to have to hone in. My wife, she will have several snacks and or hydration during a mini marathon. I won't have any. So again, we're both at the far ends of the spectrum in regards to that. So and both are okay. So it's just something that, again, you're going to have to experiment, especially if this is one of your first races that you've ever done. The other thing I will tell you in regards, I got asked a lot, and Stephanie kind of hit up on this, is what do you do right before a run? The Thursday and Friday before a run. And my response is always the same. Whatever you did the Thursdays and Fridays before your long runs, that's what you do the Thursday and Friday before a race. Do not change anything. All right. That is the one thing that will cause your body to reject itself, if you want to say reject itself, that will cause your body to not be at optimal on race day. And so again, your body gets used to a cycle, gets used to a diet. It gets used to what you eat on a consistent basis. So by changing it up, it will negatively affect your performance. So the other thing we want to also talk about, and again, we talked about even after race day, as well, I'll touch upon that, is why recovery fuel is important. So again, after you train, you need to replenish your fuel, just like you do with a car. As it gets low on gas, you have to put more in. Again, food is fuel for your body. And so you need to replenish that. Again, this is going to be something that you need to play with as well. But most of what I tell people is I recommend about 30 calories within approximately 90 minutes after doing a training. And when I say a training, I mean at least 20 plus minutes of a workout. Some people won't take anything until after a 45-minute workout session. That's something that, again, you'll have to experiment with your body. But definitely as you start to get into those heavier loads of training, you're definitely going to want to recover with some food and fuel, as well as fluid. I always recommend at least 8 ounces. Some people will not, their stomach won't allow that. And so they'll only take, 2 to 3 ounces. Some people will take a full 16 ounces. Again, listen to your body and what it tells you. That is the one thing I try to get with people to really understand when I talked to him last Thursday is your body will tell you when it needs food, when it needs hydration, or when it doesn't. And you really need to start to listen to that. And you're like, well, I don't know what you mean. Well, and if you've never done races before, trust me, your body will start to do that. It's no different than, again, your body tells you when it's getting hungry now and or when it wants, fluid. It will exacerbate that when you start to train, especially as you get into heavier training sessions. So again, really just start to listen to your body, and it will tell you what it needs. So the last thing I want to point out, and I get asked this a lot also last Thursday too, is why scales are not scales. And what I mean by that is if you're weighing yourself all the time, that scale is not telling you exactly what's going on in your body. That scale is telling you a once time today of what your body weighs. It doesn't tell you how much fluid you put in it, how much fuel you put in it, and or what's going on a particular long training session, say 7 to 10 days. So that scale is just a one-time marker of what's going on. You need to listen to your body and what it's telling you. If you want to know, hey, I get asked this a lot. Well, how do I lose weight if I'm training? Well, the one thing I would tell you is you need to eat to train. And if you're eating to train and your body is doing its job, then you'll automatically start to feel if your body's starting to lose weight. And it may not be on the scale because you may be gaining muscle as you lose fat. Now, there's an old adage, well, fat weighs 3 times more than muscle. No, a pound of feathers weighs the same as a pound of fat. It is a unit of measurement. So I always get that too. No, your body composition might change though. So again, your clothes might start to fit differently, and the scale may not show that. The scale actually may show you gain some weight because again, your body composition has changed. So yes, you can lose weight while training, but again, going back to that slide before, not eating enough food or fuel will actually have a negative effect on your training. So again, those two things aren't necessarily consistent with each other. So you can do both at the same time, eat more food and still lose weight. Again, you're increasing your training, especially as you go into those longer runs, your body's going to use more fuel. All right. So you're going to use some of what you have in your system. Again, you're going to want to use recovery and get some food back in there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everything's always 50 of the other. Again, just like the amount of food that you eat in a day or days changes, so does what your body composition will look like as well. So that's really all the slides I had today. I want to try to keep it very, very quick and very simple. So now let me take a drink of water and let the questions begin.
That was awesome, Chris. Yeah, if you want to unshare your screen, I actually pulled several questions from your presentation there just to touch on, and we do have one in the Q&A there. Guys, put some questions in those Q&As. We'll answer them. So a couple things to touch on. You mentioned after a run to get 300 calories per 90 minutes in, right? So right. Just touching on that. I have snacks available for folks after their run, and I've talked with a few people about this, and I've even put out like a sign, hey, you really only need maybe 1 or 2 of these things right now, and then go eat a healthy breakfast. Because obviously what I'm bringing is Belvita cookies and bananas and oranges and some healthy things, but some not super healthy things. But I think there's just a really big misconception between what people think that they're actually burning and how much they need to replenish. So maybe we can touch on that a little bit.
So again, when you're talking about how much you're burning during training, a lot of that depends on your body composition. Obviously, the taller and the bigger you are, the more calories you're going to burn per mile. On average, an individual burns between 100 to 150 calories per 1 mile of running. And you're like, well, that's kind of broad. Well, if you take somebody that is 5 foot and only weighs 110 pounds, they don't have the ability to burn as many calories as you say somebody that's 6'2" and is 220 pounds. So again, that really varies. I can tell you I'm 5'9" and I weigh 195 pounds and I burn 150 calories per mile. And I also put it in perspective. I run when I can run. I'm injured right now, but when I can run, and I run approximately an 8-minute mile. So that just kind of gives you, where I'm at. I get asked that a lot. Well, what about you, Chris? What do you eat? What do you? So that just kind of gives you a little bit of an average. So that doesn't mean that if you run a 10-minute mile that you're going to burn less calories, because you could actually burn more calories because, again, you're just now getting into training for the first time. And so therefore you're actually expending more calories because your body is not used to training. Again, I've been doing this, for over 20 years. And then when we talk about recovery, if you're only running, again, for 20 minutes or 25 minutes, you don't necessarily need 300 calories, within the next 90 minutes afterwards. You may just need half a banana or, an orange, and a banana is about 90 calories per banana. And so again, that's something that you definitely have to play with. It is not one of these, there is no, one size fits all type of scenario. The one thing I will tell you is that when you get into the longer runs, especially, and again, we talk about 45 minutes plus, and that again is just a baseline, is when you really want to start to make sure that you're getting recovery nutrition in your body. Because again, on race day, you're going to also want to make sure that, again, you're planning, nutrition during those runs, especially if you've never done a half marathon or a full marathon. You're really going to want to make sure you get those. And then even afterwards, again, after that run, there's a reason why they have snacks for you after races, is because we know that you need to replenish and recover with fuel. And a lot of people, to be honest with you, on race day, they're so amped up about the race, they forget, and they forget to bring post-race fuel. So again, that's why it's there. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, it is there to make sure, you guys aren't finishing a run and you feel completely depleted. I mean, I obviously we don't want that, but there is that common misconception on calories in versus calories burned and what you need to take in for your body. And you did mention maybe try an app to help to keep track of that. And like, I've used My Plate before. I found that to be pretty good. You can put in kind of your biometrics, and it'll tell you what you should be eating. And then you can put in your exercise for the day, which will tell you burn this many calories, and you're in the negative on your calorie intake, or you're still in the positive. But as Chris mentioned, you got to be honest with that. If you're going to dinner with the kids and you get a salad, but then you finish this kid's mac and cheese, and then you have 4 rolls, and then maybe you get 2 beers, you got to be honest with yourself on those calorie intakes. So I just think that a lot of people kind of skip over that that thought process.
So the one thing I want to tell, I will tell everybody. So if there's any calculation I'm going to give you, here's kind of the one thing you might want to write down. And I'll talk for a minute in case those individuals want to get a pen or a piece of paper, or get their the note app out of their phone, so that they know. Is everybody's okay? Well, how do you lose weight? And so there's a couple of different ways that you go about that. And I get that I get asked that question a lot, especially last Thursday I did as well. And there's really 3 ways. One is to eat less than what you're expending, so the calories in, calories out. The other one is to increase your energy expenditure exponentially more. So again, exercise more versus what you're eating now. And number 3 is a balance of those 2 things. And obviously I recommend number 3, a balance of those 2 things. And so when we talk about that, you're like, well, how much is weight loss? Well, healthy weight loss is just a half a pound to a pound a week. That's when we look at it and say it's healthy. Now, obviously, if you have 30 pounds of extra adipose tissue, then obviously you can lose several pounds in a week and it not be unhealthy. But obviously, if you've only got 5 to 15 pounds to lose, then weight's not going to come off as quickly, and it shouldn't. And that's perfectly okay too. Again, everybody, we're Americans, and we love immediate satisfaction, and I get that. But again, this is life. Life is a journey. And so again, it's not about, hey, how much weight do I lose today, or what's my weight on the scale today? It's how do I get to where I want to be and how I can do it on a consistent basis going forward. And so that's one of the things you kind of look at. So again, for those people that are a little bit older, like me, is especially back in the 80s and even the 90s, it was, well, just reduce your food intake by 500 calories a day, and that'll help you get to weight loss. And where that actually comes from is it takes approximately 3,500 calories of expenditure, more than what you've taken in, assuming you're taking in exactly what you should for your body, to lose 1 pound. And that is typically over a 7-day to 10-day period, depending on it. So that's where that comes from. All right. So it's the 3,500 calories is a typical target. And again, that's typically over 7 to 10 days in order to lose 1 pound of fat. Well, again, so you're saying, okay, well, I'll just decrease my calorie intake by 500 calories. Well, if you're doing that and you're increasing your energy expenditure by 500 to 700 calories per day, what happens is your body goes into starvation mode if it's on a consistent basis. And you're like, well, okay, I'm starving, so that means it's going to take fat away. Actually, what happens is your body will retain fat because it can convert it to energy very quickly, and it will actually start to break down your muscle mass. And so anytime I do lectures, I always bring up and I always use extremes, is you look at bodybuilders and you look at elite long distance athletes. All right. Bodybuilders hate to do cardio. They're scared to death that if they do 1 mile of cardio running, that they'll lose muscle mass. And again, when you look at elite runners, they have very, very little muscle mass because their body is constantly breaking it down because they are running so much that they really cannot get enough energy stores in order to build body mass. So again, those are the ends of the spectrum, but that's where those two spectrums come from. So again, if you're like, oh, well, I'll increase my energy expenditure about running and working out, and I'll cut my calories. Again, negative, less doesn't always equal more. You may actually gain more weight. Again, what we talked about, the scales not being accurate, because your body is going into, again, the starvation mode. So again, I get you want, if you're looking to lose weight, you're like, well, I don't understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, eat on a consistent basis. If you increase your expenditure, your energy expenditure, and you're maintaining the calories, your body will appreciate it's getting what it needs, and it has the ability to go after that adipose tissue in order to use for that additional energy expenditure that you're giving your body through exercise. So that's kind of how it is. It's literally a pendulum that your body goes through on a daily basis. So I want to make sure that I make that clear, and that you can accomplish both, going back to what I talked about, and how to use those MyApps and the calories that you're consuming versus the calories that you're expending through exercise and just through daily activity as well.
I'm really glad you touched on the starvation mode thing, because that was going to be my next question or next topic was, your body going into, we talk about weight loss, but we also got to talk about the other end of the pendulum, like you mentioned, the starvation mode. So don't put yourself in a rut where you're like, yeah, I'm losing weight. Your body might be starving. And then eventually that weight loss will stop because you're going to start to store those calories. Right. So thank you for touching on that. I appreciate that. We do have some questions in the Q&A. I have a couple other things, but I think that the Q&A folks here might be reading my mind. So let me go ahead and get to a couple of those. Let's see. All right, from JCTA, we have this is a good one. Sometimes people carb up prior to a big race. Is this a healthy practice? And if so, how far ahead should we carb up?
So again, I always use myself in either good ways, mostly bad ways. When I did my first race in '99, that carbs was the rage back then. You have to carb up several days before, the whole week before. I got so sick, I didn't even want to eat that whole week before the race because I was eating so much and so much carbs. So where that comes from is that carbohydrates can be easily and quickly converted into energy, glucose, in your body. And that's where that comes from. And that, again, is an old adage from the 80s and the 90s. We now know that that's not true. Again, if you ate carbs last night, right, your body is not, and I'm using simplistic terms, using it today for energy, all right? It's already digested that and decided how it's utilizing that energy that you gave it. So again, if you're not used to carb loading and that's not your normal practice during training, and you try it the week of or several days beforehand, your body can have a negative effect. And when I mean a negative effect, I mean your GI system can be wrecked. And trust me, for those of them races, having a GI system that's not working optimally during a race will make you not enjoy that race. So again, that's not what you want to do. So again, that's why I say, again, going back to what I tell people, whatever you did the Thursday and Friday during your training, that's what you need to do on race day. Again, the carb up is long gone and it's not needed. Yes, people are now all about the low carb. And again, I don't knock one diet or another. I'll just tell you that carbohydrates, as well as protein, as well as fat, which are again the 3 macronutrients in our body, they all have a place. And they are all positive things. Some bodies just digest macronutrients different than other bodies. Obviously, somebody that's diabetic is going to digest carbohydrates different than somebody that is not diabetic. And I tell people some of that you have to play with too. You know, I was joking with somebody that came to me and was talking about, you know, a low carbohydrate diet last Thursday. My ancestors are Irish, Scottish, and German. That is 3 carb eating countries. And so a low carb diet, I tried it. It did not work for me. So again, that's something that if you think, okay, I'm going to work on that, or I'm going to go on the keto diet, try it now. Start it now. Don't start it a month before your race. Go ahead and see if your body will react positively to that while you're also training as well.
Awesome. So I'm German, so all my carbs just come from beer. That works.
Well, yes.
Well, just on that topic, there is someone that asked about how to some of the best ways to replenish your electrolytes. You know, sometimes we'll go on those long runs. And side note, whether or not it is cold outside or hot outside, you're still, you know, using electrolytes in your body. You're still getting dehydrated. So even if it's 20 degrees out and you don't think, oh, I don't need water, you do. You're still getting dried out there. So touching on the hydration aspect of this presentation, what would be some good ways to replenish all that? And
Sure.
And the timing of it too.
Sure. So let me also say again, because I get asked, well, what do you take? What do you take? What do you take? And I never tell people that. And the reason I don't is because, again, it's not a one size fits all. You know, what I consume and what I take for me may not work for you. And so that's why I never, you know, readily give out that advice. Here's what I will tell you in regards to consumption is that it's an old adage is that if you feel thirsty, you're already going into dehydration mode. All right. So again, if that's the case, then the thing is you want to stay ahead of that. Well, how do you stay ahead of that? Well, again, going back to what I talked about in our kickoff video is there's no hard, steadfast rule over how much fluids a person should take per day. Again, the general rule of thumb that we go about is the 8 times 8, 8 ounces, 8 times a day. So 8 ounces of water hydration, 8 glasses a day. So that's really what we kind of go off of or play off of. You know, most research has said around 100 to 120 ounces per day for females, 150 around for males. Again, those are just baselines. You know, again, it also depends on who you are, how much you're training, and everything else. The one thing I will tell you is that your urine is always a very, very good indicator of your hydration status. Again, if your urine is a darker color, that means that your kidneys are excreting a lot of filters out. So again, a lot of toxins out of your body, and that it doesn't have the hydration to help filter those out. So again, the clearer that your urine is, it means that your body has excess fluid, which is a good thing, so that it is able to excrete not only the toxins, but also excess fluid out. So don't have to worry typically about what's called hypervolemia or too much fluid in your system. Usually that's only when somebody is unfortunately, we've seen like a frat party or something else, and they're making them drink 3 gallons of water within 30 minutes. So again, It doesn't really happen that often. It does, but it's extremely rare. So that's not something you have to worry about. So again, I will tell you, if you're getting enough. And what I say by that is, right now, if I ask you, are you getting enough fluids per day? You automatically know in your head, yes or no. And if the response is, I don't know, the answer is no. so again, you know, in the response to that is that's okay. Again, use that app, but really, really work on your hydration increase. Now, I will tell you that I have a small bladder. So unfortunately, that also means I have to go to the restroom a lot because again, I do drink so much throughout the day. That's okay. Hopefully you're not in a situation where you only get breaks every 3 hours, because if that's the case, then again, maybe while you're working, you don't get to do that and you have to offset that when you're not working. That's perfectly okay too. There are a lot of athletes out there that really swear by drinking 16 ounces of water before they even get out of bed. And there's been some research that's starting to go towards that too, because again, you've gone however many hours of sleep, 6 to 8 to whatever, without drinking anything. And so again, your body is automatically in a negative hydration state. So that's something that some people also really play with as well. The rule of thumb I will tell you is that after 45 minutes of running, a lot of people will start to go to a hydration. Again, going back to what I said, when I do a half marathon, again, I've been doing this for a long time. I know my body. Again, that's not to say if I'm doing trail running, which again, we're not talking about, I will take hydration with me because it's a different set of muscles that I'm using. And again, I'm also having to react in different ways so that my body's using more hydration and more energy fuel during those runs versus, on a road run. So again, it's one of those things that there's no hard and fast rule, but those are just some baselines.
Okay. We do have several questions in the Q&A, so I want to keep moving along quickly here. Just touching back on the hydration thing.
Sure.
Tammy, well, first of all, Tammy gave us a great compliment. Thank you, Tammy. This is the best discussion about food I've heard in a long time. For someone who is learning to eat intuitively, it's very helpful. But she did have a question about cramping since we were talking about hydration. Still trying to adjust, drinking or eating more or less before a run to figure it out. So you kind of touched base on that. It is really kind of how you are. I mean, you don't want to go out there sloshing because you're trying to down a whole bunch of water before you go, but maybe try one of those camel packs or there's handhelds or whatever. What cracks me up is that, I run with a handheld little water bottle and everyone's like, oh, I can't run with a handheld. I can't. But yet they run constantly with their phone in their hand. So I bet you can. I bet you can give it a try. Sometimes it's just a learned behavior to figure it out. But yeah, if you're going to go out for a long run on your own, or you know that you require more water than maybe the water stops that I put out on Saturdays, then you might want to really look into those handheld camel pack options, or plan your route where you can get water. Maybe do circles around your house. So but cramping, I mean, would there be any other reason for muscle cramping?
So let me just say, I'm going to use some very broad descriptions in this. And I'm sure if there were doctors on, like Dr. Krupp or Dr. Curry, they may agree or disagree to some extent with what I'm about to say. But a lot of the cramping that I see, at least in the individuals that I help out, comes down to one or two things. For the most part, it's a balance between sodium and potassium, right? And so when we talk about electrolytes, those are two of the major things that we look at in replenishing. And that's because in your body, your cells have what's called a sodium potassium pump. And so they want to stay in, again, homeostasis. They want to stay in balance. Well, if one gets depleted, then the other rushes in and can cause issues with that muscle. A lot of times I actually see it's potassium that is the culprit and not sodium. You're like, well, you take in more sodium than you do potassium per day. The problem is that depending on what type of meal pattern that you're following, so the type of diet that you're following, you may not be getting enough potassium, but getting plenty of sodium. So again, that's where you really have to look at that equilibrium. And that's when we talk about electrolytes, that's two of the major culprits that we look at. So you're like, well, how do I know which one it is? And to be honest with you, unless you're a registered dietitian and you know exactly what you're taking in, you probably won't. So again, that's one of those things you really need to start playing with, is maybe you take electrolytes pre-race, all right, or maybe post-race, and or if you see you're cramping during the race, maybe you take some electrolytes during the race. And it doesn't have to be a lot. So again, I'm not saying a 16-ounce, electrolyte bottle is what you need. It may only be 2 or 3 ounces that you need, while you're running, depending on how long you're running. Now, for those going for a full marathon, I would definitely recommend having some electrolytes, and there most likely will be some on the course. I think Stephanie hit something on the head that, again, I also have to recommend for a lot of clients that I have, is if you're doing long runs and you don't like to hold something, like I don't, then you may need to plan your route to where you're doing circle routes to where you're coming back or looping around, so that you can have a hydration station somewhere, even a bottle somewhere stashed, even behind a tree if it's at a park, to where you can stop and take in some hydration. So I completely understand those that don't like to have something in their hand. So that's something I'll also recommend. Again, on race day, they'll have it out there on the course, so that's not an issue. But especially when you're doing those long training runs, you definitely need to figure out how you're going to get some hydration in during those runs.
Okay, moving along quickly. You kind of touched on this already, but Thomas Hagen asked, aside from calories, what portions of protein or carbs should a person be intaking? And you kind of already discussed, like, everybody is different. So you can't tell Thomas, who we can't even see or visibly talk to, well, Thomas, you need to take this many carbs and this much protein on a daily. This is where one of those apps might come into play. And that My Plate app, I know that one is free. There might be a better one. And it's simple little entries you put in there, and like it tells you if you're in depletion mode or if you're in excess mode. So anything else to add to that a little bit?
Yeah, no. So here's what I'm going to tell you is 2 things. One thing I always tell everybody is, again, I went to school to get a degree in dietetics. And they never taught us the silver bullet diet, because there is no one perfect diet. So again, I always have to recognize and tell people that again, they need to keep that in mind. And again, the general school of thought is approximately 60% of your calories would come from carbohydrates. 30% from protein, and again, 10% from fat. And again, that's something to really kind of play with as well. Again, if you're going to go with a low carb diet, I have a client right now that's on keto. So again, that's going to be different. Again, for people that are diabetic, that might also look different. Even for vegetarians, again, we talk about their inability to get complete protein is something. So their ability to get protein might be something. Obviously, carbs is usually not an issue with them. So again, it's very hard to tell you that. That's something that, again, to play with. Going back to what we talked about, again, I tried a low carb diet and my body went, your body will start to tell you. So it'll start to tell you. And again, if your muscles are sore all the time after you're doing those long runs, your body is telling you your muscles should be stored for really 1-2 days, maybe a third day if you jumped up in quite a bit of miles. But outside of that, your body shouldn't. So if your muscles are sore all the time, and or you're tired all the time, then you need to take a look at it. I'll give you a very good example. My wife just came to me. She's training for a long run. She said, I'm tired all the time. Please take a look at my nutrition. And sure enough, again, I'm not with her all day. So I really had to make her sit down and really plot out what she was eating. She wasn't getting near enough calories.
Yeah, and then that's when you run the risk of going in that starvation mode that we touched on. So a big thing that I did want to talk about, and then we have 2 questions about too, is the eating during the race. So we have Rachel that says, what about nutrition during runs? Obviously, it varies person to person, but how often should we be snacking during that marathon? And you did kind of touch on that, but I want to touch a little more on it. But then Jeff kind of asked a similar thing. Can you discuss actual food versus those gels and goos that I personally think are disgusting? They're easy to carry. He does make a very good point on that, but he thinks that real food is much better. So how do you plan for that? And I think both of those questions are very, very good questions, ones that definitely want to, basically the question is real food versus goos and gels, or what's hot right now, and when to take it,
So let me just say that I've taken everything from peanut M&Ms to payday bars to turkey sandwiches and to peanut butter sandwiches. So
I've
again,
taken a long time ago when I was still new, I took salted potatoes because I heard that was great.
yeah,
that didn't work out. Cold salted potatoes in a baggie. That didn't work out too well. No.
So and again, and I've tried gels, I've tried waffles, I've tried them all. Here's what I would say is that, again, the good thing about those is, again, not only are they portable, but they automatically tell you how many calories are in them, how much potassium, how much sodium is in them. So from that standpoint, if you aren't really in tune with how much you're taking in or what has how much nutrients in it, that's where those things are good. What I will also say is it's perfectly okay to take food with you. And you can look out, and I tell people, Google's great, Dr. Google, not so great. But again, you can just go in there and type in 11 homemade protein snacks. And again, they'll pull up stuff that you can make at home. I made one recently for, again, my wife, that was granola, honey, peanut butter, and chocolate. And so again, and those things are perfectly fine too. And there's nothing wrong with taking a sandwich and just tearing off a piece of that, and having a turkey sandwich while you're doing, so again, nothing's off the table and everything's on the table. Do I personally do the goos? I don't. Does my wife do the goos? She does. And again, there are some more out there, and I'm not going to plug anyone, but actually are complete nutrition. They have protein as well as hydration in them now. So again, you can go and look at those. And I would, real
quick. I'm sorry, Chris, real quick. There are some goos, and the only one that I personally been able to do, there's some goos, and I'm not going to say the name, but there is some that it's actually real food, but it's in goo form. And if you can go out and find it, you'll know what brand I'm talking about. Chris does. So that's been the only thing I've been able to take, because I find a lot of those other things just to be pure sugar, and it wrecks my stomach. So keep that in mind.
Yes. And I would go to a running store. All right. Not a shoe outlet. All right. And I'm going to plug the local stores. I would go to King Combs. I would go to Fleet Feet. I would go to Swags.
We only go to Swags with this program, sir.
Oh, okay. There you go. Because these are people that run, and they will be able to advise you again on those type of products. All right, going to a local box or a big box store, those individuals most likely will not know anything about those goos or gels or anything else that they're selling. So, and even for running, for shoes, and again, I realize there's nutrition kind of get off but even for your shoes, I would recommend going to a running store. They will be able to fit you in shoes that are appropriate for your gait and or also what your goals are.
Awesome. That was great. So I believe I've answered most of the question and answer. I did want to save the last one from Nate Williams, one of our resident posters in the Facebook group that I see a lot of. He says he's a foodie, so he was just wondering, what's your favorite pre-race and post-race meal? What's yours, Chris?
My pre-race meal is, it just varies, because again, it's whatever I had the Thursday or Friday before. And again, like most Americans, I just tend to eat on the same cycle. So I really don't have anything pre-race. I try not to eat anything fried. I try not to eat anything high fat, because again, I don't normally eat those things either. Afterwards, it's definitely a burger with a couple of beers.
Yeah, I mean, the beer is a given. Yeah. My pre-race meal usually tends to be like a grilled chicken, brown rice type of a thing, just something really wholesome. I know it's going to sit well with me. It's not going to be super spicy, not going to be super greasy. And it kind of hits everything I need the night before. Post-race, pizza and beer. Absolutely. So, gosh, Chris, that was so awesome. We've answered all the questions in the Q&A. Guys, if you do have any more questions from this program, when we post it in the Facebook group, you can always comment on it, and maybe we can get to those questions as well. Let's see what else I got here. Well, first of all, huge thank you, Chris. That was awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a little info screen here I have while I'm finishing up, just so you guys have it in front of you and you can't say you didn't know, because I'm putting you in the know right now. How do you stay on top of all of the updates and information with the training program? Here are your 4 rules of thumb. A lot of you guys have been posting in the group asking where this is and where that is, and here it is right here for you. You can pause this video, look at this, sign up for the text alerts, join the Facebook group, all the above. We appreciate y'all joining us. This was a great group, great presentation. Make sure to look in your email in the Facebook group for the next Tuesday talk, which will actually be on February 1st. And we'll be talking about cross training. So Chris, you mentioned getting some muscle mass on our thin little runner bodies. So this could be a great way to do it. We will be going live from the brand new Norton Sports Performance and Wellness Center over there with some of the wonderful cross training coaches from that facility. So again, be in the know, check your informational sheets there. This video will be posted later. And now I want you all to go and get your Tuesday run in. And we hope to see you this Saturday. Coming up Saturday, we'll be at Beckley Creek Park. So come on out and we will see you all then. Thank you so much.